Happy Thanksgiving. All right. How'd you do with your gratitude journals this week? Was it tough? Was it easy? Saw Dallas's post, bragging on his wife there. Good for you, Dallas. That's good stuff. How many found it harder than you anticipated? Yeah, even just to keep consistent or to do it. How many found it easier than you thought? Yeah, Georgina, of course. What does that mean? Don't worry, I got something coming later for you. Yeah, for so much of my life, I've lived under this kind of illusion that there's something else around the corner for me. I don't know if you're like that, where just no matter where you are, that there's something else like around the bend. There's something over the hill. There's something outside of your immediate view, something that you're pulled towards, something that you want, something that you desire, something you think you should be, something you think you should have. And all of that is somewhere out there. It's just not here. Have you ever walked in something like that where you know that there's something else out there and that's coming that matters, and it matters more than what you're doing right now? That's a tough one. There's something around the corner that's going to make the difference, that it's the thing I desire, that thing that I feel like I put in the work for but I don't have yet. It's that event. It's whatever. That's something that's going to bring meaning and fulfillment into your life, to make things better, to make things more significant. I mean, because I don't know about you, but significance is something that I'm hopeful for. I want to be a part of something that matters. In every area of my life, I want to do something that's bigger than myself, that's something that has some sort of lasting thing. But oftentimes, as I'm looking at those things that aren't here, there's this disconnect. It's somewhere out there. It's just not here. Let me give you an example of kind of how this has worked in my life. We'll start with ministry. So I've been in full-time ministry since 1999. 1999, I started full-time ministry here we call it middle school, as a middle school pastor. There as junior high, and went to high school, then young adults and college young adult, and whipping boy, the typical healthy church model as people come up. And so I had done that, and towards the end of that time, I started to feel like, if I got a church, like if I was the leader, because I'd served under a couple different people at a couple different large churches in my time, and I just thought, well, I'm learning some stuff. I think I can do this. I think I could be a pastor. I think I could lead a church. I think I could do these things. I've been around it long enough, and I'd grown up at a pastor's home and then serving on staff for close to 12 years in different locations at that point. I think I could do that if I just had a church. Then when Eastgate comes, I step into a church, and I think, okay, now that I got church, it's me and a bookkeeper. When I hire my first staff member, that's going to be it. When I get to hire my first staff member, then everything's going to be okay. We're going to be cooking. We're going to be moving along. And then it's when I can remodel the property. That's when things are going to be going good. And then it just goes on. It just goes on for all these different things. That if I could just get to that point, that's going to be amazing. How about with family? There was a time when I was single, and I thought, well, if I could just get married, if I could just find somebody who can put up with me, that would be awesome. And then along comes Gabrielle, and I think, cool, we're going to get married. And then she looks at the calendar. She says, well, Valentine's Day is on next year. Let's get married then. And that's like a whole other year away. And now I have to wait even longer. But we get married, and I'm like, cool. When we get our first kid, that's going to be when our family's complete. We get our first kid, and we're like, when we get all of our kids out of diapers, then it's all going to be good. And then it turned into, we just got to get them out of high school. Get them out of high school. Okay, then I'll have arrived. Now it's, if I can get them out of the house, we can eat again. We can have some sort of thing where we can have a life once again. Now that they're older and they're not going to hurt themselves, we're just going to, that's going to be it. And there's always something else. Some other thing, some other position, some other place of life, something that I think is better, something that I think is different. And I find myself, whatever season I'm in, I'm wishing the current season away. We've been there. Waiting for the next season to come. One day, just around the corner. One day, hopefully not too far away, that'll be it. That achievement, that position, that accomplishment, that friendship, that relationship, that possession, that vacation, whatever it is that you think isn't good enough, what you have now, that's just outside of reach. But around every other corner that I found was just another challenge, another goal, another vision, another dream, another kind of perceived prize that I think is out there. There's an NF lyric that's one of my favorites, and I could probably talk all service about my favorite NF lyrics, but this one says, yeah, you might get a glimpse of happiness from your achievements, but what you'll learn as you get older, every time you reach one, is you'll just make another goal that doesn't lead to freedom. So true in my life. You think that thing, and once you finally get there, well then, what's the next thing? Okay, I got there, then what's the next thing? And what's the next thing? And what's the next? And it's never rejoicing and being totally happy now. It's what I don't have. It's being unhappy in this current season and in this process. And I've lived long enough now to kind of look back and to see that this has been a weakness in my life. This is something I've not done very well, and I've noticed that for much of my life, what I've been pursuing is really what I want. And my dreams and my passions and my goals, and whatever it is that I get, there's just something else out there, something different, something shinier, something newer, something warmer, something cooler, whatever it is. It's just something that we don't have right now, but what does culture do? It just feeds that mindset, doesn't it? It just continually feeds that. Like everything, every commercial, every advertisement, every time you go on social media, it's all just kind of gratify yourself, indulge yourself, treat yourself. It's all about what you want. Go after what you want. But the problem is that Jesus said is if you want to follow me, it's not treat yourself, it's that you got to deny yourself, and that's the rub. That's where it kind of becomes difficult for me. And in my process of life and as I've gone on, what I thought I wanted somewhere out there and not what I have here, Jesus says, if you're going to follow me, if you're really going to be mine, if you want to find life, if you want the kind of life that I want for you, it's not about treating yourself, it's about denying yourself. He even uses this metaphor of a cross. He says, if you're going to follow me, you got to take up your cross. That doesn't sound like fun. That doesn't sound like enjoyment. It's not something like in my 5-year plan, cool, I get to take up my cross. I get to deny myself. Like those on the surface level don't seem really exciting. You're not jumping to deny yourself. You don't wake up excited about picking up that cross and what that means for me and my desires or what I think I want. And so we wrestle with this. And Jesus says, you don't treat yourself, you deny yourself. He said, you have to pick up that cross. There's a verse I want to kind of use as an anchor for our message today, and it comes from the Apostle Paul, and it's just, we're going to take a portion of it and just kind of launch out from there. It's out of 1 Corinthians 10. It says, whatever. You could fill in the blank there. Whatever you do, except like selling drugs or something, we'll count that out. Don't like be a crack dealer. Whatever you do it for the glory of God, right? We can put that out. But let's say anything that's not like that. Whatever you do it all for the glory of God. If you're doing laundry, that would fit. If you're doing laundry. If you're picking up your kids from their events, if you're running errands for your boss, if you're just going about things that you kind of maybe even classify as mundane or ordinary, that definitely fits into the whatever. Whatever you do. You can fill in the blanks how you want there, but whatever you do it for the glory of God. Jesus says that you deny yourself, and whatever you do to really have meaning in life. whatever you do, if you're really looking for fulfillment, whatever you do, the prize isn't out there somewhere. The prize is here. The prize isn't the accomplishment occasionally. The prize is what you do daily for the glory of God. Well, I got the raise, I got the promotion. The prize isn't the accomplishment. The prize is in what you do daily for the glory of God. This is what Paul is saying, and whatever you do, whatever it is, whatever you do it for the glory of God. So I want to ask you some questions today, and we're going to kind of use these questions to build what we're talking about today. And these questions are just going to kind of come up here and throughout, and it's these. What if the work actually is the reward? What if that's the prize? What if the prize is in the process? And what if you can be grateful in that process? What if whatever you do, you can find meaning, fulfillment, and divine satisfaction in all that you do, you do it for the glory of God? What if we live life in that way, the way Paul is talking about here? What if we could step back from all the things we don't have, that thing around the corner or over the hill, just out of sight? If we could step back from that for just a second and say, what's happening now? Where am I at now? What has God given me here? If we can step back and say that, and what if the only way to satisfy that vacuum in us that always wants more and is only satiated when we live in the moment and grateful for the process? What if that was the bigger truth? What if that had more meaning, and that thing that drives us to keep looking for more, that drives us to go for the things that we don't have? What if we could just be grateful for the process? I want to show you a text. 1 Corinthians 15, starting in verse 9. This is what Paul says. He's kind of being transparent in a vulnerable moment, I believe, as I read it. And he says this. He says, I'm the least of the apostles. And I don't even deserve to be called an apostle because I persecuted the church. I was not a good guy. This is what he's saying. He says, before I met Jesus, I was killing Christians. I wasn't a good person. But by the grace of God, I am what I am, and his grace to me was not without effect. I relate to that. I relate to that because by the grace of God, I am what I am. I know who I've been, and I know where he's brought me. And I know I haven't done this on my own. It's been by the grace of God. It had an effect on me. His grace towards me changed me. More than I could have imagined at the time, but it had an effect. Maybe for you, that's your story too. You weren't very good. You may not have been very faithful in your life. You weren't always righteous, but by the grace of God, you are who you are because his grace has changed you. It had an effect on your life. Now you're becoming who he wants you to be because of his grace for you, and it was not without effect. But as true as that is, there may be some people here or listening that statement is harder to relate to. It's harder to grab onto because the grace of God has not had an effect on you. Not yet, because it hasn't penetrated your heart. Like there hasn't been a wrestling that you have decided and allowed God to do what he's wanting to do, because you have other priorities. You have other things that you elevate over what he is asking of you, what he is calling you to do. And so when you start to feel that, the grace of God is there for you, but it really hasn't had an effect. You haven't been changed by it. But the good news is you're in the right place, and this is the right time. And maybe your story might become, but by the grace of God, I am what I am. Paul goes on to say, and he says, no, I worked harder than all of them. I am only what I am by the grace of God, and I worked harder than all of the rest of them. Yet not I, but the grace of God that was with me. What did he just say? I don't think Paul is bragging here. I think he's saying, I wasn't good. He's admitting where his life had been. That he wasn't good, but by the grace of God, that has transformed him. He's not the same person. He was at that time, who he was only because of the grace of God. And because of who Jesus is and what he did, he worked hard. He took hold of them. He changed them. Regardless of his history, regardless of his past, God not only saved and redeemed him, he gave him a purpose and a passion. He says, that's good enough. I'm going to work for that. That's something. That's different than what I was raised with, in the system that I was raised with. That information changes everything for me. And I want that. I want not only to live in that, I want to promote that. I want to talk about that. I want people to know what God can do in your life if you just give it over. I am what I am. I've been changed, and the only reason you can look at me now and see the good things I'm doing is because the grace of God has changed me. I am what I am because of the grace of God. I don't think he was complaining either in this part. I think he was just stating a truth, kind of a matter of a fact. I work, I grind, I do this. It's important to me, and I dedicate my time and my passions to it. But it wasn't me doing the work. It was the grace of God through me, what God has called me to do. And I got to tell you, as I was reading that verse, I actually got the picture of Georgina in my head. I don't know anybody that grinds harder than Georgina. She's got a full-time job, and her passion for ministry, I've been around very few people that have that sort of drive. And it's a drive, it's an energy, and you've got to spend about 30 seconds around her to get that is something that's in her. It's not something that she fakes or puts on. It's something that drives her to do everything that she does. Every word, every action, it's intentional, it's purposeful. I work harder than all of them because the grace of God has changed her. What I like about it is that I don't think he was bragging. I don't think he was complaining. I just think he's talking the truth. He's saying, whatever I did it for his glory. I can't even begin to imagine the depths of sacrifices that this guy had to go through. If you're unfamiliar with his story, his life wasn't easy after he found Jesus. He became a leader in a church. That doesn't mean his life was easy. In fact, I would give anything to go back in time and just like sit with him, round a fire, have a meal. Dude, brother to brother, Christ follower to Christ follower. What did you mean when you said that? What were you thinking when you said that? I would love just to sit there and have him tell me what was going through his head at that time. What did you mean by that? I can imagine saying, well, okay, I'm not bragging, but while other people were still in bed, I got up a little bit earlier and I got into the Word. And I went through my day, and while other people were going to bed, I was strategizing about what was next, what God was calling me to, and how I needed to build, and what was happening now, and I needed to make a step. And so I just did a little bit more. I did a little, while other people may have been tired or taken time for comfort or something else, I dedicated more. I did a little bit more because this thing really means something to me. This life that he's given me, I'm not taking it for granted. There's something to this, and I want people to know it. When I was beaten, I had to go on. When he was shipwrecked, he had to find another way. When he was bitten by a snake, he didn't like it. But there was still something to do. And while others took a shortcut, he always tried to find the right way. I can imagine saying, you know what? When I was in prison, I kept working. I served Jesus even when I was in prison. We went into cities and there wasn't even a single Christian. We still built churches. We found one. We discipled. We found another. We discipled and we built. And then we went to the next place. We just did it. This grace of God, this thing that has changed me, it changes them too. It changes you too. And so I just realized this, and I decided that I can't keep this to myself. I have to do something with it. I have to grow this thing. I have to get this out there because it changes everybody for the better if you just grab a hold of it. I think that's what he's saying here. I think that would be his position, that he just got the job done. He worked a little bit harder than anybody else. And I think if we look at this kind of objectively and step back for a second, what you would find is that Paul was not wishing his current season away. No matter what it was, a shipwreck, a poisonous snake bite, imprisonment. He didn't wish his current situation away. He realized where he is at and still thought, there's something that God has me here for. There's something still that he wants me to do. There's more that has to happen here. I have to do something. And when he was in prison, he didn't say, one day when I'm finally out of prison, I'll be able to do what God has called me to do. That's not the thing. If I'm chained up to somebody, they're hearing about Jesus. If I'm in prison, I need a pencil and some paper. I can write a letter to the Philippians because they need it. This is my situation. What God do you have for me here? I just want to do whatever I have to. When he's shipwrecked, you know what he didn't say? He didn't say, God let me down again. I prayed for safety. I prayed for traveling mercies on my ship. And still went down. He let me down. He didn't say that. He didn't say, you know what, I don't have time for this. He didn't die, so he must be able to keep going. When Barnabas turned on him, he didn't go, I can't take it anymore. Christians, I can't deal with them. It's just too much. He said, I'm doing this for the glory of God. I don't know how this would apply to your life. Maybe it could be changing diapers, making a sales call, doing laundry, doing something for your boss. Just say that in this moment, at this time, even though it may not be incredibly sexy from the outside, I'm still going to do this with integrity. I'm still going to do this with a pure heart, with the heart of a servant, and I'm declaring this task. As ordinary as you may find it, I'm declaring this task for the glory of God. It's a different mindset. It's a different way of approaching how we live our lives. It does make us more grateful in the moment. And when you live this way, suddenly you wake up and you start to realize maybe the work is the reward. Maybe this thing, even though I want something else out there, maybe where he has me now, this is the prize. And maybe the life that I'm looking for is in this process. If you ever tried to do something like this, or have had an attitude that we're talking about, you probably experienced some opposition in your life because it comes along. Anytime you dedicate yourself to do what God is calling it and asking of you in that moment, expect some opposition. And there's going to be some opposition. I got 3 kind of enemies I want to talk about today that I've found when I've decided, okay, this is it. I'm submitting to where you have me now. The first enemy, and I'll just kind of use some metaphors here, is the recliner. It's a seduction of comfort. I just want to be comfortable. It's supposed to be easy. See, at home, I have a chair. It's fluffy. It reclines. It's comfortable. Like, I can go and I can study. The dog will come and sit on my lap or next to me because they're too big now and I want them off me. But they still want to sit me, and I have very little room. It's like on the bed, too, but it's another story. And I will go to the recliner, and I'll maybe watch a game or fall asleep to the game, which is one of my favorite things to do in the world. It doesn't matter what game is on, just to fall asleep watching it. It's kind of cool to me. I don't know why. But I don't know how this plays out in your life, but maybe you might believe that you really need to be happy. What you need to be happy and comfortable is a better home. And then you kind of build that better home in your mind. If you don't have walk-in closets, maybe it's if I had walk-in closets. Or maybe it's if I don't have granite countertops, it's granite countertops. Or maybe heated tile floors in the bathroom or the 3-car garage. If I just had that in my life, then I would be happy. That would mean I've made it, everything's going to be good from there. Maybe if I just had that. Same thing with the car. Years ago, you know what I needed? I needed a car that when I did this, the windows went down. Not when I did this. Now that I'm older, I like my old truck that does this. But at the time, I needed the car that did this because it was newer and shinier, and it's not what I had. Then it was the sunroof. Maybe it was the butt warmers. Maybe it was the big engine. If I just had that one, then I'd finally be happy. If I was just the boss. if I was just in charge, if I had enough money, I could take life easy. That's what I want. I want to be the shot caller. I want to have all the resources and all the things, and then everything is going to be easy. And I hope you understand that one thing God never called us to was easy. It was never a life of easy. Easy never changed the world. And yet the recliner sits there and it calls to me. Like it calls to you. It's the seduction of comfort. There's also this distraction of the notification bell. That allure of constant distraction. You're doing something important and then ding, notification. What did she just post? Where did they go? And you go in and you got a rabbit hole now that you're going down for 2 hours. 2 hours a day has just gone by like that. This distraction. What's happening? What am I missing? What's going on? Who's doing what? You finish watching a Netflix movie and that thing comes up. Netflix recommends you watch this. It's 99% that you're going to like it. It must be from God, right? It's his divine favor on me. Tell me, this is me. I got to do it. Click. Notification bell. We overprogram our kids because we're so distracted. We got to get little Jenny to the traveling soccer team so that she can get a scholarship to college. I know she's only 3 years old, but we got to do this. We got to get them there. It's the notification bell. It's the carrot in front of the donkey. They're just always chasing. It's the shiny thing. It's the new thing. Just do this. Distraction. And then there's the towel. This is when we give up. One of the biggest enemies of being content and finding gratitude in this moment is giving up. The temptation to quit and throw in the towel when the marriage gets difficult and I'm not in love anymore and it feels like it's just not even worth it. Trying to get our finances together, trying to get out of debt, and the car breaks down. And there's another bill. And then you're shopping. Oh, I got to have that jacket. I got to have those shoes. That's my case. I got to have those shoes. I got to have that thing. I know I'm trying to get out of debt. I know I'm trying to dig out of this. But I'll charge it. I'll charge it. I'll rack up the charges. Rack up the debt. And I know I'm in this fight. I know I'm supposed to get out of it, but I give up. Because it's so much easier just to give in than to fight that. Even with Christianity, I see this inside the church all the time. People coming in like, I went to church for like a month. I read the Bible probably 3 days in a row. People are mean. It's not worth it. This thing is, it's not worth it. I give up. You throw in the towel, and you give up on it. I've seen this over and over again. They didn't appreciate you, and so you felt like you weren't making a difference, and so you just wither away and go away. It's just too hard. You throw in the towel. Instead of throwing in the towel, pick up the towel, wipe off your sweat, and get back to it. There's so much opposition out there when we decide to do what God has called us to do. And He's leading us into these areas of life, and suddenly we begin to realize that the work is the reward. And we begin to realize that the prize is in the process. And I can be grateful for every single day in that process. Let's talk about graduation speeches for a minute. Everybody's been to a graduation speech at one time or another. I can sum them all up in this way. Follow your heart. Follow your passion. Do what you want to do. And that sounds fantastic. You're going to find, though, passion doesn't always pay the bills. Your heart doesn't always put food on the table. The problem with passion is that selfish passion is about us. It's about what I want. There's a higher calling, and it's not selfish passion. It's selfless purpose. That's the better thing. That's the higher calling. That's what has more substance to it, more fulfillment to it. And once you start to recognize that you're doing God's purpose, you'll begin to realize that that is passion. And the passion always follows the purpose. and not the other way around. When we're following God's purpose, we'll realize that there is a passion to that. So instead of me being the starting point and my passions, I understand what God is asking and calling of me, and that's the purpose. And as I step into that purpose, I find my passion. It's a different way of approaching and looking at things. It puts things more in its right perspective. When God is the starting point, whatever you do it for the glory of God. And then you begin to realize that what you're doing, God has called you to. And even in this moment, even though it may not be your favorite thing, you're still being blessed. You're still being fulfilled, and you're not having this constant, I got to have something else. And you're able to be grateful even in the process. And even when it doesn't look like the ideal situation, even when it doesn't look like the way you might script it out, you can still be grateful in that moment. Think about Paul for a second. The guy was passionate about something. I mean, he's human. Outside of even Jesus, maybe it was music. We don't know that it was music with him, but maybe he had a guitar. He liked putting clips on YouTube. Maybe he was passionate about that. Maybe it was cars. Maybe he liked cars. He had his eye on the new Cadillac, right? And whatever it was, I'm sure that there was things he was excited about. What he was not passionate about, I can guarantee you, getting bit by a snake. I'm sure there was nowhere in his 5-year plan, I got to check that box. I'm working and doing what I'm doing right now so I can have some viper latch on to me. That's not part of his thinking anywhere. He was not passionate about getting beaten and left for dead. He was never like, oh, if I could only do that, if I could only be beaten, if I could only be shipwrecked, if I could only be bitten by the snake, then that's going to do it. But instead of pursuing this selfish passion, self-centered passion, what he did was he pursued God's purpose. And that's the key. What is God's purpose? If you're looking to fill that hole, if you're looking to meet that need, that's the first question to ask. What is God's purpose? And suddenly he would say things like we see in Acts 20. He says, I consider my life worth nothing to me. None of my dreams, none of my wants, none of my life. I don't consider any of that. My only aim is to finish the race. That's all I do. What's my purpose? I'm going to finish this race. I'm going to do what he's called me to do. That's what he's saying here. My only aim is to finish the race, to complete the task Jesus has given me. What was that task? It says the task of testifying to the good news of God's grace. What does purpose do? Purpose helps us feel passionate about ordinary things. When you have purpose, like when you're a mom and you've got the kids, they're leaving their clothes everywhere, like all this stuff, like you can complain, but when you know this is my children, this is my family, this is my life, this is my purpose, this is why I'm here, we can do things and find more joy, find more contentment, find more gratitude in the things that we think are just ordinary and mundane even. I can do it all for the glory of God. This thing right now that I'm doing right now, I'm saying is for the glory of God. This little thing, this communication, this action, this going to the store, this picking up laundry, whatever it is, I can do that. I can dedicate that. I can put that aside and say, this is what I'm dedicating to God because this is the purpose that he has for me, and I can, whatever I do. Maybe you even found that. Is Joseph in here? Cool. I'm going to talk about him. Maybe you found this true even in serving. Making somebody a cup of coffee, greeting somebody as they walk in the doors for the first time for the church, serving in some capacity, saying, this isn't just about filling a slot, this is about the mission that we as a church, as a body are on, and I know that God has me for a purpose, and so I step in and I'm using my gifts, I'm using my talents, I want to do what God has me here for, and so you step into that, and now it's purpose. Now it's fulfillment. Now it's joy. You found joy when you're simply making somebody else a cup of coffee. What normally seems ordinary becomes extraordinary because it's not just a task, but it's a direct purpose of God. Passion always follows purpose. Paul, he gives us these profound images. He says, I'm not running like somebody who with his arms beating the air. He He says, I'm not running aimlessly. I love that image. I'm not running aimlessly. It's not like I'm jogging. It's not like I'm running with nobody chasing me. I run for a purpose. I'm doing things on purpose. I love that. He says, I'm not just shadowboxing. I'm in a fight. This matters right now. Not over the hill somewhere, not around the corner. This matters right now. So everything that I do has a purpose. It's going in a direction. It's on purpose, for a purpose. This is what he said, I run with purpose with every single step. Can we all say that about our lives? Every single step. When I wake up, God, today is your day. This is the day that the Lord has made. Whatever I do, whether it be big and exciting or small and insignificant, whatever you do it all for the glory of God. Big, small, do it all for the glory of God. I'm not running like a man who's running aimlessly. I run with purpose in every step. Everything I do. It may seem little to you, but I'm doing this on purpose. I'm directed by God's Spirit. I'm empowered by His Word. And I'm loving people everywhere I go. When we start to transition into that way and think that there's intentionality with our life, with the things that we think are just ordinary. When you walk into the room, the Spirit of God walks in the room with you. You become a climate changer. You become a people lover. You lift the moods of people. When you walk into the dark room, the light comes with you. There's nowhere you go not on purpose. Nowhere. Everywhere you go has a purpose. Me standing here today has a purpose. I'm an ambassador of the Most High God. That's the philosophy we all should have, that we're ambassadors. We carry this message. He's done something. Look, you may have known my life before, but I am who I am today, but by the grace of God. Let me tell you about it. Let me show you how He can do this for you. Let me demonstrate with my life. Let me demonstrate with how I talk with you, how I hold you, how I don't demean. I give you dignity. I acknowledge your humanity. When we do that, it has purpose. Whatever we do, I'm going to do it for the one who changed my life. When I was first hired as a middle school pastor, it wasn't that far removed out of coming out of rehab, as within 2 or 3 years. And there was a good number of people at the church, and even though it was the church that I grew up in, and even though it was the church that my father pastored, there was still a contingency of people that said, this guy? I've seen him. I know what he's done. Like, can we trust him? Is this the right call? There was plenty of detractors. Anytime you step into that, you may have some of that. Somebody says, I've seen what you've done. I know who you are. I know where you've been. And you're just not good enough. But by the grace of God, today I am who I am. He's changed me. He's moved in me. And I'm sorry you can't recognize that at this point. I'm just standing in the truth that God has given me. I am changed. But by the grace of God, I am who I am. Whatever you do, I don't know how that's going to speak to you. I don't know if it's driving your kids all over town to do the things they got. You do it for the glory of God. When you're fighting to hold your marriage together, you're doing it for purpose, for the glory of God. When you're crying with your spouse because you want to conceive and you're just having a hard time doing it. When you're caring for your aging parents and you feel like you're called to do something more and you're stuck in that job that you don't love, when you're healing from a crushing kind of disappointment, and when you're battling cancer, when you're trying to pay down your debt, when you're trying to do all these things that seem like they're life draining, all we got to do is kind of change that perspective that in this moment, this is where the God of the universe who loves me, who's redeemed me, who has a plan for me, has me. He's made this day. He's taken me to this point. He's not going to leave me alone. I'm going to do whatever I can for the glory of God. Just in those things, when it doesn't even seem like you would want to do it, The prize is not when you get the promotion. That's not the thing. The prize isn't when you get the fancy car. The prize isn't when you get to go to the beach or the vacation with the big woke mouse. That's not the prize. The prize isn't when your 5-year dreams all come true and when you get discovered or when you finally make the big bucks. The prize is now. The prize is here. There's something in this moment that I don't know that we fully grasp all the time and take advantage of and let it drive our next steps. This is the day that the Lord has made. And because of the grace of God, I will rejoice. I'll be glad in it. That's what David said. Nothing was easy for David. From his failures to his opposition, he still says, this is the day. Today, with all of its problems, today with all of the things that are up against me, today with everybody that's against me, today, God, you made it. I'm going to rejoice in that. I'm going to take hold of that. And when I recognize that I've been transformed and by the grace of God and for his glory, then whatever I do is not from me. I can't live for me. I didn't do the things in me that brought me to this place. It was the grace of God. It was him who took hold of me, and because of that, I have to step into that. I can't take credit for that. It's for the glory of God that I run with purpose with every single step. And I serve him faithfully in this purpose, and the passion begins to follow because I'm not doing it for me, I'm doing it for him. And then one day, I wake up in the middle of the mundane, in the middle of the normal, and say, God, I want to experience you here. And so for that purpose, this step I take here is on purpose. And that step I take there is for a purpose. When I go to the right or when I go to the left, it's for a purpose. And your passion begins to follow and be built from that. I don't know where you all are in your lives individually. But I've never really met anyone who would say, I'm exactly where I'm supposed to be. And I'm experiencing and rejoicing in everything I'm in this moment. It's such a hard kind of life to live. But the question becomes, if we really, because I've heard a lot of people talk about over the last few weeks, I just want to be more grateful. I just want to recognize more what God has done. I don't know that we can ever do that until we start here. This moment, this process, this struggle, this difficulty, this challenge, this time of blood, whatever this is where God, the one that loves you, the one that sent his son for you, the one that set the stars in the skies, the one who has made all of this happen, he has put you there. Why? It has to have a purpose. If it doesn't have a purpose, you're following the wrong God. I think if we begin to appreciate those things more, asking the questions, God, okay, maybe even if I acknowledge that you're the one that has me here, I don't totally understand why. Those questions are great. There's nothing wrong with those questions. But not to ask the questions is a problem. To think that there is no purpose, no reason, that it's all by chance, that it's all random, that God is somewhere oblivious and doesn't really see or care or want, that's not it either. And so, in the question of how do I become more grateful, I think it's just a matter of how we recognize more, what we see, what we are willing to embrace, understanding and trusting that God is faithful. He's good. He doesn't leave us. And as we begin to understand that, it becomes easier to say, like Paul, whatever I do, whatever whatever I do, it's for that reason. It's by the grace of God. I think as we step into our holiday festivities and dinners and family gatherings and everything else, what's your purpose? What's God wanting to do at that time? Maybe in you, maybe through you. What's God wanting to do? Maybe if we step into potentially situations where we're a little bit nervous, where we don't know how things are going to go because of animosities or drama or the crazy uncle or whatever, it makes it a bit easier to go through there knowing that my God is for me. He's with me. This thing that he has me in, it's for a purpose. God, let your purpose be done. Because it's your grace that's changed me. I want to make that known. That's the way to live our life. Heavenly Father, we thank you for your goodness, your grace, your plans, your purposes, your life, your example to us, Lord Jesus. I'm just praying that in this moment that we as a family begin to understand and see you and able to walk with you more, knowing that you are right alongside with us. Lord, you do not leave us. You do not forsake us. God, you don't leave us to figure things out on our own, but you have us here for a divine purpose. Lord, give us the discernment by your Holy Spirit to understand how you are leading us. Even if we don't totally understand why, the purpose is to make your name, your fame known, to talk about the life-changing power that is possible because of Jesus Christ and his sacrifice on the cross, the thing that fundamentally changes us, that makes us new. Forgive us where we've taken things for granted. And we've looked ahead or looked to things that we don't have or that we wanted and failed to recognize just how many ways you have blessed us in our present and are moving in our lives. God, you have done so much. We just want to get in line with what you're doing. We want to experience your goodness in this place. As David says, I'm going to know the goodness of the Lord in the land of the living. That's today. And so today, Lord God, even as we leave this place and we go to lunch, it's for a purpose. We are ambassadors. You've moved us. You've redeemed us. You've called us. Lord, help us to live our lives in a way that honor the grace you've given us. You've changed us, and we're grateful for that. And in this moment, I just want to give an invitation and a direction that if that isn't you, that maybe today is the day that you say yes to Jesus, to his invitation where he says, follow me, where he says, I have a better way, that I've paid a price, I've done the things, I've done the hard work. All you have to do is say yes to that, and maybe you've been kicking the tires and waiting, that today, even though you don't feel like you can take big steps, today is the little steps where you just say yes. And so my invitation to you is like Jesus' invitation to us, and just says, follow me. Today you can find where your significance and your purpose, and find your passion in that purpose, if you'll say yes to Jesus. And I would even challenge you to do one more follow-up thing there. If that's you, tell somebody. Maybe it's somebody you came with, somebody sitting near you, maybe it's a pastor. Tell somebody. The Bible's very clear that the path to salvation, it's simply believing in your heart, confessing with your mouth. And the fact that you're willing to say yes, actually say yes. And tell somebody that you're accepting the invitation today, and begin to walk in that, to find your purpose and your passion, to be grateful in the big things and the little things, to be his witness, to be his ambassadors, to be all that he has in his heart for you. So Jesus, I just ask that you confirm that by your Spirit today, that you would lead us in the ways and the paths of life, that you would take us in the directions where we can find that meaning, find that fulfillment, find those areas where you have called us to, that we can walk boldly in that and experience everything that you have for us. Give us the strength to walk away from the things that don't matter or add to your plans and purposes in our lives. The things that distract us, the notification bells, the allure for comfort in the recliner. And God, even where we're at the point where we're ready to give up and we're ready to throw in the towel just because it's gotten difficult, but we haven't really looked to you to help us through the difficult time. God, help us not to throw in the towel and give up. We thank you that you do not leave us or forsake us, and that you are leading us in the ways of life. In the name of Jesus, amen. Guys, I hope you have a fantastic Thanksgiving, not just with great food, not just because you might be with people that you like being around, because you understand what God has done for you, that you understand that he's working in you now, and that you understand that he's taking you to the places that are going to be far better than you could hope or imagine in your life. I believe that's what he wants for you. And that in this moment, even going into difficult situations, you can enter into it with more of a sense of joy, more of a sense of gratefulness. And at the end of the day, far happier. Would you stand as we get ready to dismiss? May you feel the heartbeat of the Father in your life. May you know his loving arms that surround you. May his light guide your feet and on your path. May you not only experience his love in this time, but may you demonstrate a love of a God that reaches out and invites even the least of these. May you know the joy and satisfaction of being on purpose for his purpose, and may his life be yours. In the name of the Father, Son, and Holy Spirit, amen. Thank you guys for being with us and worshiping with us today. Have a great week.